Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides is not directed by Gore Verbinski, but instead is directed by Rob Marshall. And this movie actually has a different story rather than continuing the storyline brought up in the first three movies. Well, I mean, there's one element that is brought up from the last movie, which is the Fountain of Youth, where Barbossa was wanting to find the Fountain of Youth, but then found out that the map was stolen by Jack Sparrow, unsurprisingly. Now, people were really excited for this movie because they were disappointed by the last couple movies, but however, since this movie was sort of taking a different story, people were really pumped for it. And this actually has the worst reviews out of all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, which I'm actually shocked over. Again, like the last two movies, I really liked Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. Now, right from the Disney logo, I can tell this movie's gonna have a little bit more of an eerie feeling, because you hear this music and you see those fucking mermaids. Yeah, I'll get to those mermaids here in a second. But it automatically sets up the tone for this movie. There is still some really funny stuff in this movie, but I can easily say this is the creepiest out of all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Again, I think Johnny Depp's portrayal of Jack Sparrow is just on point. He just so makes this character his own. And it's still really funny seeing him do stuff. And whenever you see him sword fighting, it's still really cool. Now, in this movie, the villain is Blackbeard. Now, Blackbeard was actually a real pirate. Now, the more I think about it, the more I realize that on Stranger Tides actually does have more connections to real-life history than the other two movies, because this movie actually introduces people who actually did exist in real life, just in fictionalized form. Like this one king, I'm sorry, I forget what this guy's called. King George? I'm gonna get slaughtered in the comments section. However, they take some pretty big liberties when it comes to this character, because this is really not at all how he was like. For me, again, it's not a problem because this franchise is not trying to be real life. I mean, sometimes it does go a little bit too far, like the actual At World's End part of At World's End, but I can forgive the fact that this movie is just clearly not trying to be based in real life. And we actually do get some pretty interesting characters. Like, there's this one character who's like a heavy Christian, but luckily it's not like annoying heavy Christian. Like, he believes that anybody's soul can be saved. And he's just such a good person. He's sort of like the Will Turner of this movie. He's just so good. Like his just views are just so good. I mean, not to a rip-off extent or to Gary Stu extent, but he's just a really cool character. And Penelope Cruz as this character called Francesca is also pretty cool. I mean, she's not the most memorable Pirates of the Caribbean character, but she serves the story she's in. And Captain Barbossa is now serving under the king, which I'm very surprised over because I would have thought he would have been hanged. I mean, did that actually used to happen in history where like a pirate would change his ways and actually become an officer under the king? I have no clue. I mean, now let me get to my main point in this review. The reason why I say this is probably the creepiest Pirates of the Caribbean movie ever. The fucking mermaids. I mean, because of this movie, I'm now terrified of mermaids. These mermaids are actually based on the ones from the original stories. These mermaids will actually lure a man with their extreme beauty, and then eventually just drag them down to the depths, drowning them and then eating them. I mean, fuck! And when they're being scary is not even the scariest part of the mermaids. It's when they're acting all friendly and just singing, and then more of them start popping up, and the eerie music. That's when these mermaids are at their scariest. I never thought I'd say this, but mermaids are terrifying. Get those fucking things away from me! God damn it. Fucking mermaids. And what's worse than this movie, they'll actually get you on land too! Like, they have these weird rope things that they'll just throw at you, and then, like, it grabs your leg, and then they tug you into the water, and then they'll drown you, and then fucking eat you! And it makes it even worse, considering drowning is one of my biggest fears. I mean, just sinking down to the bottom, knowing you're gonna die, and then you're forced to breathe through that water, which is gonna suffocate you. I mean, God, I can't stand the thought of drowning, and I can't stand the thought of these mermaids. And again, this movie has a complicated plot, but it's at least enough for me to follow. I guess a lot of people weren't really able to follow it. Like I said, I probably have a better attention span when it comes to movies. There are even some pretty funny visual gags in this movie. Like, they happen for like 1 second, and like you could like it could have easily been cut out of the movie, but it makes for a pretty funny joke. Especially for this one scene where Captain Barbossa and Captain Jack are in this one ship, and Jack grabs a map. Like, what happens after that is actually pretty funny. Like, again, it serves nothing to the story, and it happens, like, in less than 10 seconds. But it's just so funny. I also kind of find it clever how they, do the whole Fountain of Youth thing, like how it actually works. It's pretty original. I mean, I don't know if that was in the book. I mean, now, if you don't know, this was actually based very, very loosely on a book called On Stranger Tides. I mean, I guess they sort of took that book, but changed a lot of things so you could put Pirates of the Caribbean in there. Again, I don't know if that was in the book or not, but I really do like how they did the whole Fountain of Youth thing. It made it pretty original. My main issue is that there's a character who's impersonating Jack Sparrow, but when you actually find out who it is, like when you actually see the person in the Jack Sparrow disguise, you can tell that's not Jack Sparrow, even if you didn't know who the guy was. There's not really much I can say about this movie. I mean, like the other Pirates of the Caribbean sequels, I feel like this is pretty underrated. The story is really cool to follow, and I do get really invested in it. The mermaids are fucking terrifying, which is good for what they're doing, so props to them. Fucking mermaids. So I'm going to give Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides a 9 out of 10. I know, call me stupid all you want, but I can't help it. I really like these Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Now, in terms of how I'd rank them, from best to least best, it goes as this: Dead Man's Chest, On Stranger Tides, Curse of the Black Pearl, and At World's End. Again, I like all these movies. Some are better than others, but I feel like I'd put them in this ranking. So, what do you think of Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a like, share the video so we can get the channel circulated, and if you want to see more, click this. Mermaid! Ah!